Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to our Buddy to Boss podcast. In this podcast, Liv will be interviewing Blake Thatcher, who is an LSM for Queensland Pest on the sunny Gold Coast. Enjoy. Thank you for joining us today. I know that you've got some tips on how to transition from buddy to boss, but before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey with Rentokil.
So my name's Blake, obviously. I started with Rentokil 5 years ago, roughly. My brother worked here as a technician at the time and eventually talked me into applying for a job here. From the start, I probably was more interested in the management side of things and the office in general. I did really enjoy being a technician as well, but I always sort of tailored my technician time towards getting into this position. Coming into the role, I was in a team with a couple of people I knew on the Gold Coast, as well as a ton of people that I don't know. About maybe 2 years into me working in this position, I also put in a referral for my other brother to come into the company. He applied, he got the job as well, and we were put into the same team. I always, when I was a technician, I guess I was always looking for ways I could learn a little bit more about, I guess, the business side of things, management and everything like that. So I put my hand up a lot to help out if our LSM was ever on leave, or if there was ever anything that I could help out with in that realm. Due to the LSM, I guess, going on a bit of like a extended bit of leave, I took on the LSM role in a just like a stand-in position for a little bit. In that time, I was managing my brother, as well as a bunch of people that had now become friends of mine. So it was a little bit interesting to navigate in the start there for sure. I really enjoyed it though. So when the position was officially advertised a few months later, I applied for that. I wasn't successful the first time, but it put me in, I guess, some conversations with the operations manager at the time and my LSM of what I needed to learn in between then and when another position come up.
So you've moved up into the LSM role. You still have a brother working with you and peers that have come through. Tell us about any challenges you may have experienced, whether it's someone coming in late or performance issue or family barbecues or any of that you have to navigate.
I guess I've had a few, no major issues, but a few things have definitely come up in relation to, I guess, the buddy to boss scenario. And I just try to remember that even though I do know some of these people on more of a personal level, they're all in, the same position, and I'm in the position I'm in where I need to make sure things are running smoothly. So there has been a few times where a technician that I know pretty well has maybe taken some time off and there's been short notice or things like that. And it's been like a very casual conversation of, oh yeah, I'm not going to be in today, and it's maybe 9 o'clock in the morning. So I guess I tried to get onto that as early as possible and just be very transparent, I guess, in the fact that half of the team I know pretty well and the other half I probably didn't coming into it, but I'm going to be treating everybody, I guess, the same way. Is there anything more specific you wanted to know, I guess?
I guess just some of maybe the language around, your mates running in late on a constant basis, but now you're his boss, and it's having that sometimes difficult conversation of, look, I know you've been late a few times now. How do you navigate through that? What do you say?
Yeah, so I guess very early on when I come into the LSM role into this team, I tried to set some boundaries, I guess, where anything work related stays within the work channels of the work phone, the work email address, things like that. And that made it a little bit easier when these situations did come up of maybe one or two technicians did think, oh, just let him know late, or I'll, do something a little bit that wasn't quite right, and maybe think, oh, I know Blake, I might be able to just make this a little bit easier on myself. So I just tried to have those conversations, I guess, as early as possible with the technicians, and just I guess I'd like to just be very open with what my role is and explain. Whereas just because I know you a little bit better or anything doesn't mean that we can do it any different way. It's just, this is the job that I've got and you've got your job. And even though I might know you personally, we still need to keep it the same, I guess.
Yeah. I like how you set the boundaries and expectations up early. I think that's really important, because I'm sure you can go back to that if anyone, goes a little bit rogue or takes advantage of things. You can probably have that conversation of, hey, how we spoke about such and such, what's going on there?
I don't know. So I guess another situation that I had was when I was a technician in this role, there were technicians that were here for a long time before me, maybe 10 years, 5 years, etc. That in a pest control sense, they would know probably a lot more than I would in that world of the technical side of things and servicing. And I think when I came into the LSM role, a couple of those technicians weren't exactly happy that I was put into a management role while they technically would know more about pest control than I would. And I think because they knew me fairly well and they weren't quite happy with it, they did try to go about things a little bit the wrong way. And a few of those conversations of, oh, you were a trainee when I started. I think I know a little bit more than you, et cetera, et cetera. And I think with those couple of situations, again, had to sort of hit it pretty early on. So that went on for maybe 4 weeks with a specific technician at the time. And then I figured I've got to get onto this early, and I opened the conversation of, this isn't the way we speak to each other. We've got to keep this professional between both of us, as well as respectful. And it continued a little bit, and always with a little bit of that conversation of, I was here before you, I know more than you, you were a trainee when I started, that sort of conversation. So it did keep continuing, and we were able to have a official record of discussion, and from that, everything sort of turned around, and that specific technician took on everything I said, and for as long as he was here, he sort of understood after that of what each of our roles are. I went into a lot of detail on what my role is, what our sort of KPIs are, how we need to hit state of service, and all of the specific things that we both need to make sure we're doing day in, day out. And having that conversation in, I guess, like quite a formal situation with the two of us, it was quite uncomfortable, being somebody that I did learn a lot from as a technician, and they were here before me and I know them fairly well. And then having to go into that formal conversation was a little bit uncomfortable, but I think getting into that stuff as early as possible and not putting it aside really helped out in the long run of, we both understood what each other's role are a little bit better, and each other's thought process around what either of us wanted. I think there was things that both of us took from that conversation, which was very productive.
Yeah, good on you. It takes courage to have that conversation, especially early on in that leadership role. So hats off to you.
Yes.
Like you said, it can be quite daunting and nerve-wracking.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think future ones might be a little bit easier?
I think even just having that conversation with that technician and, really like biting the bullet and having the hard conversation and sitting up straight and presenting myself how, I know that I should in any other situation. I've had those difficult conversations in another team I was managing, and it was always a little bit easier with people that I knew a little bit less on a personal level. I guess that conversation, having it really early on, was very confronting and a little bit daunting and scary. But I think going in there, knowing what I'm supposed to do and supposed to say, and just really like biting the bullet and doing it, and like it takes there's a bit of anxiety around it and that. But once you actually do it, I think it really settled me into the role, probably more so than I was able to in the first team that I managed, because it really just gave me a bit of confidence of this is someone that I have known for a long time, and I am able to have this conversation. It was productive in the end, and it did work out really well. Then I think it just sort of made me realize what future conversations are going to be like to an extent, whether it goes good or bad. It sort of just really opened up my eyes to, I can do this. It's not as bad as I thought. And I think a lot of people are more understanding than I maybe my brain was telling me to begin with.
It's always the way. Worst case scenario first, and then we delve into it and it's not that bad.
Yeah.
And are there any other tips that you might have for people coming into an LSM role, particularly if they're about to manage their friends, their peers?
I think if I could give any advice, it'd be really like, do not just try to have like go-to technicians that you've got, because then that's when people are going to start looking at it a little bit like, oh, this one person's getting everything. And especially if you're coming from like the buddy to boss thing, it might not even be someone that you were necessarily close with as a technician, but I think the rest of the team, if you do have like one or two people, they're going to sort of see it as, oh, there's something there or whatnot. So I like to keep the opportunities open to everyone, especially when like, if something comes up for a new course that's available, whether it's termites or pre-construction or bird work or anything, I'll put that out there, in whether it's in the pod meeting or whether it's in our group chat within our team, and I give as much detail as possible. And I'll actually go out of my way to call technicians and tell them like, hey, have you thought about applying for this? I think it goes with your skill set fairly well and whatnot. I've done that Bolton and Bolton personality quiz, and we added a bit of what motivates you and what interests you in the future. So I've been able to get a little bit of information about where people want to head to, but just keeping it very like transparent without getting into people's personal details as possible. I think that's very important, I find anyway. And just engaging with the team as well. And really, like, I guess if it is a buddy to boss scenario, like reaching out to those people that you might not know as well on a personal level, because you don't want those people to feel like, oh, I didn't know this technician very well, now he's my manager, and what's that going to mean for my position moving forward? Am I going to get left behind? Am I going to get forgotten about or anything? I think I've tried to make that very clear as early as possible, of everyone in this team is a part of this team equally. So I want to hear your feedback. I want to, give you these opportunities and everything as well. And trying to get to know everyone, not on like, you don't have to be best friends with everyone or anything, but really trying to figure out who they are, why they're here, and where they want to be, work-wise, as well as a little bit of their personal life as well. I think is nice.
That's excellent tips, Blake. I love them all. I love the getting to know people, offering them all a variety of opportunities and not having that favoritism that sometimes people are prone to assuming, and often for no good reason or, unintentioned. And yeah, lots of opportunities for people, which I think you're right, and we do offer them, but they might not always be aware of it. Or
one thing I found helped me a lot is I was very open with technicians that were in my team about, this is what I want to do. I don't know if it's going to be in this team, if it's going to be in another team, and just trying to get, like, without going too formal with it, just little bits of feedback on, like, what do you think makes a good manager? How do you want to be managed? What are the good and the bad things that you're seeing in this team? I guess you're only going to be as good as the team that you're with. So try and work out what drives them, I guess, even while you're still a technician with them, and really take notice of it, and don't just think about yourself with the role oh, I want to do this, I'm going to go do this. It's sort of how can I help these people? How can I be the manager that, I think they want, I think they should have.
Good on you. That's great. And they probably got them ready mentally to some degree as well, of knowing that you could potentially be going into that role and, be their LSM.
Yeah. And I did, when our previous LSM was, whenever they went on leave or anything, I did put up my hand a lot to just say like, oh, I can help out. Being able to do that little bit of payroll or stock ordering or things like that while I was still a technician, and getting a chance to have a few of those conversations with, my brother or my friend that works in the team or whatever it is, of, you're doing a stock order and they might try to order a little bit extra because they know you're there doing it. So you get to have a little bit of a go at that conversation of, hey, I've got to do this fair between everyone. Like I really want this job, things like that. So I think it's good to put up your hand for those things if they come up in the team. If it's something you're interested in, definitely try to get like a taste of it before you get out there and do it full time.
And I know your engagement has increased around your team as well, so hats off for that. Well done.
Yeah, I think it's going good. I think the service is going good. The job's going good.
Yeah, I heard your state of service, and you got some happy employees and a couple of new hires that are doing really well. So yeah, good on you. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for your time, Blake. And I'm sure you'll get lots of people calling and asking for advice post this, so you're welcome.
That's all right. Always happy to try to help.
Awesome. Well, you have a good day, and thanks again for your time.